It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome in to Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. This week, we're talking about an unexpected diagnosis, and that's exactly why we've gathered this team of professionals to discuss that issue. I'm Matt Goolsby, and financial advisor and founding partner of Market Advisor Group. The rest of our panel includes Susan Curtis, tax advisor from Market Tax Services, Doug Schauder, estate planning attorney from Eidelman Law Firm, and Corey Hebert, health insurance advisor from Market Medicare Advisors. Thanks, guys, for coming in today and having this conversation for everyone to hear this kind of unfortunate story here. You know, Dave and Sandy was diagnosed with some health problems. And just as they were getting close to retirement, or just about nearing retirement, she was possibly facing retirement earlier because of this health diagnosis. And if you're going to have to retire early, and of course, because that forced retirement, or because that retirement earlier than you expected is happening because of a health incident, probably chief among your concerns would be your health insurance. So Corey Hebert of Market Medicare Advisors, tell us what was going on in this situation with Sandy's scenario.
Yeah, so of course, Matt, this is unexpected, and there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts all happening at once, with their chief concern being, what are we going to do to get Sandy covered? And one of the most common things that we think about when we think about health conditions is the pre-existing condition, and what is that going to do in terms of what kind of options will I have moving forward based on my pre-existing conditions? Naturally, that was the thing that they had the most questions about. Luckily, I was able to give some great news in terms of Medicare and what Medicare is going to be able to do for them.
That first year you go on it, you're talking about, is it a 6-month window where you don't have to prove insurability, you don't have to answer any health underwriting questions? You could have one foot on the banana peel, proverbially speaking, and they have to cover you, but you have to make sure you do it. There's some time constraints around that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So what we're talking about there is we're talking about Medicare supplements, because whenever we have some more major health conditions, a Medicare supplement tends to be a direction people will gravitate towards. When we talk about Medicare supplements, it all revolves around the Medicare Part B start date. And within 6 months of that Medicare Part B start date, we're able to get a Medicare supplement without going through any underwriting and no checks on pre-existing health conditions. They have to issue that policy.
And so this is a window where if you're turning 65, that window there that you have the 6 months, is it after you turn 65 or is it 3 months before? Tell us a little bit about that window.
Yeah, so when you talk about enrolling into Medicare Part B in general, getting the whole thing started with Medicare, we have a window of 3 months before the month you turn 65, the month you turn 65, and 3 months following.
So that 6-month window you were talking about, that's a different window though than the enrollment initially in Medicare.
Yeah, so that window I was talking about there, the 6 months within the Part B start date, that is for some of the secondary coverages, because I'm starting to see this less often in my office, but there has been in the past a general misconception that Medicare is going to take care of most of your medical bills and it's going to offer you this fantastic coverage, when in reality we do need secondary coverages.
And so then in this case, for Sandy's situation, even though this health diagnosis was forcing her to retire earlier, which is terrible, but I mean, we're helping them work through it, she didn't have to worry about proving that she was in good health to get enrolled in this initial, call it the first time she's offered these plans. But then often if you want to switch them in the future, that's when they ask the questions and hey, you know, but it was good that Sandy had you as a resource, because she had to basically pick the plan that she was probably going to be on for the rest of her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's important there, Matt, is the continuity of care and making sure that as soon as her employer coverage stops, we have everything set in place, that she's not going to miss an appointment, she's not going to miss a beat, and everything's going to be taken care of.
Well, now that we got Dave and Sandy's main concern addressed, which was chief among them, how they were going to be covered in retirement for their healthcare purposes, We could turn to something that I thought was a concern, and then the fact is that if you're saving for retirement, we find when people are saving for retirement, that is, it's not as noticeable that either if you have a financial advisor or your work 401k plan, they're not helping you with the tax advice or the tax component. Well, Dave, he'd done pretty well, and I kind of congratulated him because he'd saved a large amount of his assets in the type of tax status account we call a Roth. So this Roth he saved in his work 401k. Sandy had some as well in a Roth, but she didn't have quite as much. Dave had done, like I said, pretty good at putting money into that Roth, or probably doing Roth conversions over the years. But their situation was changing. With Sandy looking at retiring early, she needed to look at her Social Security options. And of course, we talk all the time that Social Security is taxed currently differently than just regular income. And oftentimes, your Social Security will change in taxation as far as if you have other income, interest from the bank, withdrawals from your retirement accounts, if your spouse is still working a job. So we wanted to make sure when we were discussing her Social Security options that, of course, we walked through what taxable implications there could be there. So Susan Curtis of Market Tax Services, tell us about how you helped with Dave and Sandy's situation in regards with the tax side of it.
So we were able to sit down and look at the different accounts that they had, and we were able to devise a plan with the advisor as to like how to take and structure distributions to help lessen their taxable Social Security.
Okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm in the conference room. And so you just gave a bunch of tax talks, so let me put it in English for the client and the advisor, right? Well, that's how it happens. I mean, you guys are very detailed and very specific with your terminology because you have to be. But that terminology doesn't always translate to the individual, so let me put that in plain speak. Because Dave was so fortunate, he'd saved a lot of his, or he'd saved a good deal of his retirement in that pre-tax, the Roth account. You guys helped structure how much we should take from the Roth versus how much we should take from the untaxed account, and if that would have any impact or sometimes reduced or eliminated the impact on the Social Security taxation. And sometimes you can do that if you have a large amount of your nest egg saved in that Roth.
Right, and you know, the big thing with that is if you start pulling money and doing, you know, distributions from the wrong types of accounts, you could, you know, cause 85% of the Social Security to be taxable, and you could go down a really nasty rabbit hole, you know.
And we talk about on the radio that if they eliminate that tax on Social Security, it will open up a lot of planning opportunities for people to do even maybe larger Roth conversions, because if you have Social Security where it's not taxable income, that's going to be kind of a good deal for now. Yeah. But we know that it does make Social Security run out of money a little sooner, right?
Absolutely.
So as one's health changes over retirement, how does that impact an estate plan? Any considerations there, Doug?
Well, yeah, in particular with Sandy, with her health measures, we needed to review their planning and see where they were at with things. Anytime there's a change in health or a change in your life situations, it's really a good time to sit down and review your plan. The biggest issue, honestly, that Dave and Sandy had is that they did not have recent powers of attorney. They had done ones years and years ago when their children were still young, and they had each other still named as their primary for making healthcare decisions. But Sandy had her parents named, and they had passed away a few years back, and her children were now adults. So we needed to go through and update the documents. But the other issue that happens a lot of times with these documents, particularly the financial ones, but even sometimes the medical powers of attorney, is that if they're too old, the institutions may challenge them and say, is this a valid document? If a document's 30 years old, they would have reason to believe maybe there's another one that's out there and may have something different. So they may not honor that. So having a current up-to-date document is important, and having their kids in place is really a concern for her.
You know, if we have enough time at the end of the show, I want to come back to that, because you and I know of several stories where some companies didn't recognize someone's power of attorney if it was older than 5 years. But just one of the many examples of how we all work together as a team for you. Do you have a complete team that's helping you in retirement? Looking ahead to retirement could feel like looking through rose-colored glasses. But do your glasses even have the right prescription? To find out, all it takes is a 15-minute introductory phone call with one of our advisors. And you can set up that 15-minute phone call by calling 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376. Or check out our website at retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us possibly to use in a future episode. In the next segment, we'll return on Eye on Retirement. We'll turn to the different side of this retiree story. You'll want to stay tuned. Be right back. Welcome back into Eye on Retirement. Every day we meet viewers just like you. Some that even watch this show, and I love it when you guys come in, and I want to thank you guys for watching the show. We engage in sharing solutions to their concerns and worries to help them navigate all those different issues that can pop up through the years of retirement. This past week, I taught a Social Security class, and if you want to attend any of our classes, you can go to our website, marketadvisorygroup.com, to see when and where we will have a class near you. And if we don't have a class near you, there's also webinars to watch there as well. After the Social Security class I taught, a couple came up that had concerns about one of their parents, Cindy and Tom. Cindy's mother was not doing so well, and she had zero, and I mean zero, estate plan in place. And with her mom being 90, we immediately prioritized and brought in one of our estate planning attorneys when they came in for their visit. So Doug, we're going to turn to you, Doug Schauder, Eidelman Law Firm. It's because Cindy had no estate plan, you kind of had to hit the ground running, so to speak.
Yeah, so we had to kind of do a full assessment of the situation with Cindy's mom. But the biggest issue was she was 90 years old, and it looks like at some point she was probably going to need some either in-home care or possibly a nursing home. So one of the big concerns was, you know, what's going to happen with Cindy's mom's assets, how much of those are going to have to be spent to pay for the nursing home costs. And one of the things looking at is trying to protect what assets that you can. But with Medicaid, there's a 5-year look back for transferring any kind of assets. So that's any kind of transfers that you do, if you're going to run into that 5-year rule, can be a real big risk. So when we're assessing the situation, we want to look at a person's income and also their assets. Well, if there's a high enough amount of income or significant amount of assets, the potential is there that you can preserve some of the assets, but you have to make sure that the person is able to pay for that nursing home care for that full 5 years and be able to cover that, and then have have the protected assets available after that.
Let me see if I got that. So if someone needs the nursing home and they're trying to protect their assets, you need to at least set aside 5 to 6 years of things that could pay for their care. But then if you take the balance of that nest egg or that estate, you can move that out of that person's estate, and then it covers that Medicaid 5-year look back.
That's correct. So, and just to make kind of a simple example, if the nursing home cost is going to be $10,000 a month, that'd be $120,000 for the full year. So a person would need essentially $600,000 to cover that cost. But above that level, you can potentially set up some things that will protect some of their assets.
And this is planning oftentimes optimally done when people are healthy, not when you're needing the care, because then you have more options. Because you guys are, in this instance, you're basically doing crisis planning, we call it.
Yeah, if you do it farther ahead of time, you don't necessarily need that $600,000. And part of that is because the idea is that you're making these kind of plans without the knowledge that you're going to need a nursing home. If you're planning it years in advance, it's much more of a question of if a person would actually need that care.
And so, but for Cindy's mom, you guys were helping her get power of attorneys in place, because if Cindy's mom continues to go downhill, there might need to be some official documents there to make medical decisions for Cindy's mom.
Sure, yeah. So that's part of the process, is getting financial powers of attorney, getting healthcare power of attorneys. We actually were able to utilize a trust with a lot of the assets. Cindy's mom had some real estate and investment properties, And so putting those properties into the trust was able to be set up where Cindy would be able to act as the trustee and manage those properties and kind of take care of things for her mom with that. And also one of the benefits of the trust is that it avoided probate too. So if something happened to Cindy's mom, all of those properties would just transfer directly to her heirs.
And again, working together as this team allowed us to do that. Now Cindy and Tom, they had kids later in life, and Cindy was, again, semi-retired. She thought it was best to let her Social Security roll up, let it defer it and it gets larger and take it later. But they had no idea that since they had a child at home, still in school under the age of 18, that one of the parents, if they filed, their child would be eligible for a benefit too until turning 18. And then they had tax questions on this. So going to bring in the tax team, Susan Curtis, Market Tax Services. What's going on here?
So because of this, benefit, they were concerned, are they going to have to pay tax on that, or like who's responsible for paying tax on that benefit? And the good news was with them, because it's somebody else's income, it doesn't go on their tax return. It would go on the dependent's return. But in most cases, when you're that young, you don't make enough money to even have to file a tax return or even pay income taxes on that.
So the benefit that the child would be receiving wouldn't be taxable to mom and dad.
Correct.
Wonder if mom and dad got to spend the money, or if that's a whole nother can of worms.
Right.
There, a whole nother can of worms. But are you frustrated when it comes time to getting answers for your retirement questions? Are you anxious that you could be missing something in retirement? Well, you don't have to be. And all it takes is to alleviate that anxiety is a 15-minute introductory phone call with one of our advisors. To set up that 15-minute phone call, dial 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or better yet, check out our new website, retirementhelp.com. There you can also watch past episodes or submit a question for us possibly to answer in a future episode. In the next segment of Eye on Retirement, we'll finish off with Cindy and Tom's story. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss it. Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. In the last segment, we were talking about a different client, Cindy and Tom, about their taxes and estate issues. But there was also a healthcare concern that they had. Cindy was 65 and her husband Tom was still working, and she was on his health insurance. But since she was turning 65, she thought, well, should I just start taking Medicare? Should I just have Medicare cover me? And I said, well, that's a great question. But as a financial advisor, I'm licensed to handle Medicare, but I think it's better if we bring in the right time for the right person, and that's Corey Hebert with Market Medicare Advisors, one of our healthcare advisors. So Corey, tell us what was going on here for Tom and Cindy.
Yeah, so with Cindy turning 65, we know that the spouse of the employee typically cost more on a health insurance plan than the employee alone would. So Cindy thought there could be an opportunity to save money if she were to move directly over to Medicare. Now, as we mentioned in the last segment, there were some youngers at home. So after we sat down and looked at what Medicare would cost Cindy on a monthly basis, it made sense that it could be a good option for Cindy to move to Medicare. The only problem is that with Tom's employer, his options were to be covered self or to be covered family. So moving Cindy over to Medicare, if we only factored her into that family cost, would have made sense, but we still had one other person that was covered there. So Tom was going to pay the same amount for health insurance, covering her or not covering her.
So to pick up Medicare would be an unnecessary expense and not wise to do.
Yeah, for their case, it was completely fine to delay Medicare past the age of 65, and that's not going to cause any late enrollment penalties in the future because she's maintaining creditable coverage.
Now, I want to revisit, like I was telling Doug here, I want to go back to the couple we talked about in the first segment, Dave and Sandy. They had this power of attorney in place that was 30 years old. Is there such a thing as a backup power of attorney?
Well, there is the ability to use a backup power of attorney. The question is that the right choice to make? Now, for something like a healthcare power of attorney, you can name as many folks as you want on that power of attorney. Then if something would happen to her husband, her kids can step in. folks name relatives or brothers and sisters or other folks as backups on that, and that's perfectly fine. There's not really any downside to that. With a financial power of attorney, though, it's a little bit of a different situation because there's a lot of opportunity with a financial power of attorney for somebody to get into the person's financial affairs and bank accounts and retirement accounts and those types of things. So when a document is actually a live document, most of the time they're set up to just have one person and not have a backup.
Well, and I mentioned this briefly, we've seen companies out there, and I say companies, like financial institutions, banks, 401k companies, not recognize a financial power of attorney if it gets older than 5 years, right? Well,
that's another risk with an old power of attorney, is that the companies question whether or not it's valid, particularly with the financial powers of attorney. A lot of that has to do with their own kind of liability protections, is they don't want to have somebody making unauthorized transactions on the accounts, because then they are potentially subject to liability for that.
It makes sense, but if you're not meeting with your estate planning attorney on a regular basis, it's kind of very difficult to keep those power of attorneys up to date, right?
Yeah, and that's something that we typically do with all of our clients, is we'll touch base with them every few years and just see, hey, what's changed in your life? What kind of things have happened where we may need to make some adjustments with your estate plan? So whether it's a health issue, whether it's, maybe new grandchildren, or there's, different things that happen, or somebody just, particularly when a spouse passes away, that's always a situation where it makes a lot of sense to review what's set up in the estate plan. Is now your backup maybe the person that's there to call on. So is that what you want? Did you want to change your person for that?
And so if you think about this, we've all had some area of expertise that we've weighed in on in their situations, whether it's Dave and Sandy or Tom and Cindy. And when you have a journey ahead of you, it can feel scarier when you're going it alone. When all these tough decisions come down to only you, it can feel less scary when you have a whole team on your side to help. Retirement is no different. And if you'd like to feel less alone when it comes to your retirement planning, Market Advisor Group is here to help. Call and schedule a 15-minute introductory phone call today with Market Advisor Group, just to see if we're the right fit for you. So you can reach out at 833-624-REPORT. That's 833-624-7376, or better yet, do so at our website, retirementhelp.com. You can also search for Eye on Retirement on YouTube, where we upload all past episodes for you to watch on demand. And that's all the time we have this week for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Goolsby, along with the entire panel here, reminding you that we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Investment advisory services are duly offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, and Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The investment advisor representatives of Market are also affiliated with and registered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, and may provide services on behalf of both firms to client or prospective clients where properly licensed or exempt. This show is presented by Market Investment Group LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor that only conducts business in jurisdictions where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean that the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in the practice of law or accounting. The information presented is believed to be current. It should not be viewed as personalized investment advice. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the presenter on the date of the show's publication and are subject to change. The information presented is not an offer to buy or sell, or a solicitation of any offer to buy or sell any of the securities discussed. You should consult with a professional advisor before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Any legal or tax information provided in this show is general in nature. Always consult an attorney or tax professional regarding your specific legal or tax situation. Annuity and life insurance guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. If you withdraw money from or surrender your contract within a certain time after investing, the insurance company may assess a surrender charge. Withdrawals may be subject to tax penalties and income taxes. Persons selling annuities and other insurance products receive compensation for these transactions. These commissions are separate and distinct from fees charged for advisory services. Insurance products also contain additional fees and expenses. Social Security rules and regulations are subject to change at any time. Always consult with your local Social Security office before acting upon any information provided herein. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. This is not endorsed by the U.S. government or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-Medicare to get information on all your options. All client or prospective client names have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. All rights reserved.